guys, Chris, Bee Bustin', Life Sweet Honey Farms, Tucson, Arizona. Actually, we're out in Picture Rocks. For anybody who wants to know where our honey comes from, it's anywhere from Marana down to 3 Points. A little bit further than that sometimes. So one of the biggest questions we've had for the week was, are the bees disappearing? Are the bees in trouble? The answer, in my opinion, in the desert Southwest, no. Across the country, there's European honeybees that always have issues. So, being that said, European honeybees are the bees that we keep in little white boxes. But, however, we have an increase. It's not a decline. We just, all our bees are being shipped back from California right now from almond pollination. We go out to California and we pollinate almonds. Takes 1.6 to 1.8 million colonies to pollinate almonds in Northern California. There's roughly 2.4, 2.5 million colonies across the United States that are in little white boxes. So we actually had more bees show up in California than we actually needed this year. And that comes from quite a few beekeepers, big commercial guys like myself, that some of them couldn't place their hives because they were already full. So if it takes that many hives and we're in an increase, then I don't see the biggest hassle of the bees dying off. I have heard from a lot of beekeepers that they lost a lot of their bees. So it's either A, there's more people starting up beekeeping, or somebody's adjusting the market. I don't know. But you know what? In the desert Southwest, especially here in Arizona, let's just say you have 2.4, 2.5 million colonies across the United States that are in little white boxes managed by a guy like me. What happens is we have feral colonies. Now, here in the desert Southwest, we have pretty much 100% Africanized honeybees in Arizona. Those are all going to be your feral colonies. If you see a swarm hanging over a tree, if it's going in and out of your roof, it's going to be Africanized. We quit doing those studies a long time ago because it just kept coming back, Africanized. So what I would say is there is probably that many colonies of feral colonies, feral bees, wild, in the desert, houses, under sheds, dog houses, wherever, as there is managed colonies across the United States. And that's just in the desert. That's just here in Arizona, maybe Southern California. Those guys experience a lot of Africanized bees too. But there are a lot of feral colonies out there. And those all started by beekeepers anyway, because bees swarm. That's the natural migration of honeybees. That's how they reproduce. That's how they do their jobs. They take a lot of bees, build up in a box. The old queen will leave with a bunch of new workers. The old hive will build a new queen cell, make a new queen, and next thing you know, you have a swarm that leaves. Where does that move in? Under a shed, in a roof, in a tree, somewhere, wherever we find bees. But anyway, so people are asking if the bees are disappearing, and I don't think they are. I don't think we have that big of an issue, at least here in the desert Southwest where I work. Like I said, I do hear about people all the time saying that they have issues. Now, every hive that we have, we can make more hives out of. So that's how we keep our equipment full in a lot of cases as beekeepers. We'll split our hives. We'll make another one right out of the one we have. We'll make new queens, everything else, basically forcing a split. And that's one of the ways that we can keep our bees going. So it is a pretty big industry. There is a lot of work that we do to keep the bees at the numbers that we need them at. Keeps the honey flowing so that everybody keeps their little honey bears or whatever else they get. But, however, bees aren't disappearing. Here we're getting ready to go into the swarm season of the desert, Tucson, surrounding areas. And there's probably going to be, at any one time, thousands of swarms cruising across southern Arizona. Thousands in a day. Maybe even more. There's so many bees, so many feral colonies. Africanized honeybees can put off a lot of swarms. They can swarm 20, 30 times a year, depending on the flow of pollen, nectar, how big their hives can get, how small the cavity is that they live in, and how many times they're going to swarm. So we catch them all the time. We're going to have 250 traps, 300 traps out in Tucson, and that's how we catch a lot of our bees. We catch them wild, Africanized honeybees, and I go out and change them. So that way we can use them towards pollination, towards making honey. Some of them stay Africanized just because they're in a yard that we don't really worry about. We work with Africanized bees every day anyway. So I don't think the bees are disappearing in the desert Southwest. When people are calling us up and they're asking, can you guys do a live removal? In a lot of cases, yes, we can. If it's not a feral colony that's established. If you got a big old nasty mean hive, there are guys in this town that create bee attacks every year because they're Africanized honeybees. The other day I had to respond to a call where a dog got stung up just because it was 30 feet away from a hive when it swarmed. That dog just didn't provoke the attack. That's just Africanized bee behavior. So, we don't like to put you, your home, your kids, your dogs in jeopardy to save an Africanized honeybee that actually is not endangered. It's the most hygienic honeybee we have. There's no mite problems with them. There's no disease problems with them. The only natural enemy that those things have is probably the lack of water and us taking care of them, bee busting. Remember that number, 665 bees. We take care of hundreds and hundreds, thousands of them in the city of Tucson every year. And we would keep doing that because we don't need them. They're a nuisance. They're a detriment to our ecology. They're not something that we want in town. They're not beneficial. There's no crops that need to be pollinated by them. People are going to say, whoa, wait a minute, Chris. I've got a garden. Yeah, and we have native pollinators for that. If you didn't have Africanized honeybees in the southern Arizona desert, you would have a lot more native pollinators. I think there's over 1,400 native species of pollinators. Not honeybees, pollinators in the southern Arizona desert. If we didn't have Africanized honeybees, those things would flourish. Now, they were here first, so they probably should have a chance. But there's a lot of people out there that want to save the bees. No problem with that. I get it. It makes perfect sense to have bees. Mass pollination is a great thing because it helps us eat. And we want to make sure that there are a lot of them. We never want to have a decrease because then it would price food way out of the market. So anyway, bees disappearing? I don't think so. You guys have a good day.